Let's begin this discussion. Let's not allow this to move forward.
Tonight, there's some big changes coming to healthcare delivery in Alberta, and the Treaty 6 chiefs want a say on how that plays out.
First Nations expect of their leaders is to work on the issues and to get results for our people.
Cindy Woodhouse has her sights aimed on the top job at the Assembly of First Nations.
We're doing the Edmonton International Fashion Week, and it's just going to be an amazing time.
And there's some amazing times ahead for a multi-talented performer from Saskatchewan. Good evening, I'm Dennis Ward. Welcome to APTN National News. A former Manitoba Grand Chief has launched a countersuit against an employee who sued him for sexual harassment and sexual assault. Arlen Dumas was suspended from his role with the Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs in March 2022 after the woman filed the complaint. In a statement of defense, the former Grand Chief said the allegations are false and have defamed him. He also says the sexual contact was consensual. The woman claims she was sexually assaulted 8 times and did not consent. None of the allegations against him have been tested in court. Dumas was voted out in August 2022 following an internal investigation. Last week, the United Conservative Party in Alberta unveiled a plan to reorganize the province's health services. But the Grand Chief of the Confederacy of Treaty 6 First Nations says they were never consulted. APTN's Chris Stewart spoke to the Grand Chief about his concerns.
Last week, the United Conservative Party unveiled its plan to completely change the way healthcare works in the province. Alberta Health Services will be broken up into 4 separate divisions: acute, primary, continuing care, and mental health and addiction. Alberta Premier Danielle Smith told a rural conference last week that this will be good for Albertans.
You're going to get more accountable, more flexible healthcare networks with no changes to public healthcare or any cuts to frontline services.
But Confederacy of Treaty 6 First Nations Grand Chief Desmond Bull says that even though Ottawa is responsible for treaty healthcare, the province should have come to his group first.
We understand under the 2022 acknowledgement, that we are going to formulate some sort of way of communicating these discussions with the province. Obviously, that has not been honored. So for me, it is a little concerning, but it doesn't mean we can't fix and move forward in regards to how we can conduct the process, especially addressing mental health services within this province.
He says treaty rights, such as the medicine chest, give them a seat at the table for consultation on health.
We as Indigenous people, especially within this province that outlines the treaty territories of Treaty 6, 7, and 8, realize it's very important. The process of duly to consult based on this agreement it needs to be more thoroughly conducted. The consultation process that may impact Indigenous people.
He says it's not too late.
Let's begin this discussion. Let's not allow this to move forward. Let's actually find a proper way of consulting so we can be a part of this discussion without having that consistent issue of always playing catch up.
Neither Premier Smith nor her Indigenous Services Minister responded to APTN's request for an interview. But an emailed statement from Alberta's Health Department read in part, "Right now, a series of meetings are being planned with First Nations health directors and Métis partners. Minister LaGrange will be sitting down with representation from Treaty 6 in the next couple of weeks, including Chief Desmond Bull." It goes on to say, "One of the immediate actions we took was to create a new Indigenous health division within Alberta Health to elevate and focus on healthcare equity for Alberta's Indigenous peoples." Chris Stewart, APTN National News, Edmonton.
Like many other nations across Turtle Island, Casa peoples in southeastern Yukon are eager to revitalize their language. Now a new program is helping them do just that. Here's Sarah Connors with more.
Emerald Pope's life mission is to be fluent in her native Casca language, and with help from elders, she's getting there. Pope is one of 5 students enrolled in a new full-time Casca language training program in the community of Upper Liard. It has an ambitious goal: teach young speakers language fluency so they can eventually pass down the language themselves.
There's so much need in the community for language, not only for it to be visible, but for people to be able to teach it.
Today's lesson, hide tanning in the Casa language. It takes a mix of classroom learning and community input, with elders providing wisdom and language.
How do you say it?
3 times.
Yeah.
Ta-da-da. Ta-da-da is 2, isn't it?
The one-year program is administered by Liard First Nations Language Department. In addition to classroom work, elders work one-on-one with students to hone in on the language. All of them here want these students to succeed.
Maybe in the future some of them could be language teachers in the school. People wanted to see traditional parenting programs for expecting mothers and all that in the language.
Just knowing the contributions that our elders make, and just that they're willing to come here to help us, and just can't really ignore that.
The significance of saving an endangered language hasn't been lost on the community's last speakers. Jocelyn Wolftail knows it well. Once prevented from speaking her language at residential school, she knows how it feels to be lost without it. It's why she lends her time to the program.
Without your language, you lose your culture. So while they're doing language, they're learning culture too at the same time, like making moose hide and stuff like that. So it's all coming back, which is the best part.
But it hasn't been without challenges. A lack of housing in the community forced one student to drop out, and a fuel leak in the program's building forced it to be moved to a community hall. Funding, which comes through the First Peoples Cultural Council, is tedious to secure and may be cut next year.
And if that happens, that's going to be detrimental to our program. We cannot continue based on, 40% of the funding that we have right now. As it is, we don't have enough for what we want to do. So,
while Pope says a year isn't hardly long enough to be fluent, she does have hope for the language and herself. With 3 years of learning under her belt, she's never felt more grounded.
When you learn another language, you see the world through that language. So that's how I'm sort of trying to reconnect and I guess maybe reconnect with my ancestors. Yeah.
Now it's up to young speakers like Pope to pass down what she's learned so the next generation can thrive.
And because I know the benefits of it, yes, I would like to share that with everybody else because I know that they benefit from it as well.
Sarah Connors, APTN National News, Upper Liard.
All these great language programs, and they always have such dicey funding. Coming up after the break, we'll continue our interviews with the candidates for National Chief of the Assembly of First Nations. Stick around. Welcome back. Canada's Tourism Minister, Soraya Martinez-Ferrada, made her first trip to Iqaluit this week to get a better understanding of Arctic tourism. Ferrada's trip was mainly to attend Travel Nunavut's annual conference, where she spoke to various sectors of the territory's tourism industry. She says one of the biggest hurdles she's seen to tourism in Nunavut is the high cost to actually travel there. On average, a round-trip airfare from Iqaluit to Ottawa costs around $1,500.
Not only the cost of traveling, but also not getting enough airlines coming here and getting the infrastructure to have bigger planes and have other planes coming not only to Iqaluit, but to other regions of Nunavut. So yes, transport has been honestly one of the biggest issues and challenges that the North faces for the future.
And over to the West Coast now, where Canada's Indigenous tourism sector was getting a big boost through a new small business fund. The $10 million program was announced this morning in Vancouver.
This fund will assist small businesses in the heart of Indigenous tourism with direct financial support. Businesses will have access to grants up to $25,000.
The micro and small business stream officially launched today in partnership with the Indigenous Tourism Association of Canada. It's part of the $20 million Indigenous Tourism Fund that was created last year to help the industry recover from the pandemic. With the Assembly of First Nations election quickly approaching, we're sitting down with each candidate, and up next is Manitoba Regional Chief Cindy Woodhouse from the Penamatang First Nation. This is her first time running for National Chief. I spoke with her earlier. Cindy Woodhouse, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Well, it's been a tumultuous year for the Assembly of First Nations with the former National Chief's removal this summer and claims of bullying and harassment within the organization. What do you think needs to be done for the AFN to move forward?
Well, it's no secret. We've heard a lot through the media. We've heard a lot through First Nations communities that it has been a tough year for First Nations at the Assembly of First Nations, but I just think, as a leader, you kind of bear down, you get the work done, and you work hard on the issues such as, child welfare and making sure that that we focus on getting out, $23 billion out to our First Nations communities, and I think that's what First Nations expect of us, and as First Nations expect of their leaders is to work on the issues and to get results for our people.
This isn't a new thing, but of course you know that a number of First Nations people, especially within the grassroots, feel the AFN no longer has their interests at heart. What would you say to those people, and how would you improve relations between the AFN and the nations it represents?
I think focusing on the issues. I think working teamwork across the country, chiefs across the country work together. At one point there was 5 resolutions, during last year's December Assembly that, called for different ways of trying to settle the child welfare settlement for $23 billion, and chiefs came together in a good way to make sure that, that they tried to work together for our kids. And I think that, when we focus on our children, when we help each other as First Nations from coast to coast to coast, that these are the results that we get, are better results for our people, and our people expect that of us, and they're waiting for us.
If elected as the next National Chief, what would be your highest priorities for the AFN?
Well, of course, we still have $19.8 billion on the table when it comes to reforming the child welfare systems across this country. Our communities, are starting to take the lead and bring their families home. But I think also policing and justice issues. I know that we need long-term, sustainable, predictable funding for our communities across the country. And of course, housing is always an issue. There's just and respecting our treaty and inherent rights. We see some bills before Parliament now. Talking to some members of Parliament the past week has been a little bit tough when when they question, say, the membership of our people, and other people are not questioned, and I think that's disheartening. And we always seem to have to have these discussions as First Nations people. They're not going to be easy discussions with all levels of government and with industries, but we have to have them.
Well, what would you like to see the Assembly of First Nations accomplish in the coming year?
We need investments into First Nations communities when it comes to, like I said, policing, better long-term, we need to try and close the gaps to 2030. There's huge housing investments that are needed, infrastructure investments that are needed, and our chiefs expect that of us, and because they're community members, First Nations people in their communities are expecting them to deliver results, and that's what the Assembly of First Nations should be working on.
Cindy Woodhouse, we'll have to leave it there, but wish you all the best in the campaign, and appreciate you taking time for us today.
Thank you.
And we will wrap up our interviews with the candidates next Monday and Tuesday. You can find all of the interviews over on our APTN News YouTube page. A new Indigenous-led sci-fi thriller is having its world premiere tonight. We'll speak with the director and one of the actors of the Beehive after the break. Welcome back. Time now for our photo of the day. While exploring the wilds of rural Quebec during the fall season, our very own Todd Lamarand came upon this majestic beast and could not help but take a photo. Thanks for sharing, Todd. If you have a photo to share, send it to share@aptn.ca for the chance to be featured as our next photo of the day. Now let's take a look at tomorrow's weather forecast. Starting on the East Coast, 14 in Charlottetown, +2 in Fredericton. +3 with snow in Kuujjuaq, 1 below in Nain. 2 above in Montreal, -1 with snow in Val-d'Or. +6 in Sault Ste. Marie, snow and 2 for North Bay. 5 in Thunder Bay, 0 with flurries in Sioux Lookout. -11 in Churchill, 1 below in God's Lake and Norway House. Sunny and +4 in Winnipeg, sun's out and 6 in Dauphin. +1 in Regina under sunny skies, 9 with the sun in Saskatoon. 9 in Meadow Lake, +1 in La Ronge. In northern Alberta, -3 and cloudy and high level, 0 in Fort Chip. Sunny and 9 in Edmonton, 13 above with the sun out in Lethbridge. 11 and showers in Vancouver, +4 in Kamloops. 6 in Prince George, snow and flurries for Dease Lake. -10 with snow in Old Crow, flurries and 0 for Whitehorse. -4 and cloudy in Yellowknife, 14 below with snow in Norman Wells. Snow and 11 below for Sax Harbor and Inuvik, -8 in Pawatuck. -12 with snow in Chesterfield, 21 below in Cambridge Bay. -12 and snow in Resolute, 4 below with flurries in Igloolik. Well, it is International Indigenous Fashion Week in Edmonton this week. APTN's Chris Stewart spoke to Cree model Tyson Martell about his quick rise in modeling and his nomination for Male Model of the Year.
It's not often that a career oil worker in his 40s gets to change gears, just slightly, and perform in Hollywood movies and hit the stage at fashion shows. But 44-year-old Tyson Martell, a Cree from Meadow Lake, Saskatchewan, has done just that. Less than 2 years ago, he was asked to give it a shot, and it's been a fast rise since.
I'm an actor. I've been in a lot of movies. I can't tell you which ones because it's a non-disclosure agreement, but they're coming out here soon. And I'm just feeding my inner child, and then this modeling just kicked in, and I'm just like, well, okay, well, this is the path creator wants for me, then let's do it.
He's been around the world working with famous models and celebrities. He has an upcoming movie with Russell Crowe.
I got to model with Ashley Collingbull, and then after that, we did another show out in Edmonton, and then we did the Métis Crossing one, and then I went to New York for New York Fashion Week. So this awards was like, it's gone so fast.
And this Sunday at the International Indigenous Arts and Fashion Awards, he is up for Model of the Year, and Tyson is excited.
We're doing the Edmonton International Fashion Week, and it's just going to be an amazing time. And my mom's going to be there, my 3 aunties, my sisters. So it's going to be fun to model in front of them and show them the different side of me.
Chris Stewart, APTN National News, Edmonton.
Good luck to Tyson. Well, a new Indigenous sci-fi thriller is set to debut tonight, actually. The Beehive tackles rocky family dynamics and grief in the midst of an alien invasion. The film is written and directed by Métis filmmaker Andrew Lacheris. One of the stars is Meadow Kingfisher, who is from Sturgeon Lake First Nation in Saskatchewan. I spoke with Andrew and Meadow earlier. Alexander Meadow, thanks so much for being with us. Alexander, let's start with you. Can you give us a brief synopsis of the Beehive?
Sure. Thank you, and thank you so much for having us on your program today. The Beehive is about a family, and they're living on a farm, and it's a single father and 2 children, Rosemary and Aaron, and the little girl, Rosemary, goes out into the back forest and she finds something that looks like a hive or a nest growing on the side of a maple wood tree. And she comes back to it every day, and it is starting to grow in kind of an unusual shape. And she doesn't really recognize that it's possibly could be harboring something a little more dangerous and unfriendly. And yeah, I guess that's the basic premise, is that it's sort of like a family that's slowly coming to the realization that there's a pandemic alien invasion coming.
Nice. Meadow, it's been quite a year for you with a role in a Treehouse cartoon as well, but this is your first kind of lead role in a feature film. What was the experience like for you?
It was really nice meeting everybody on set. They were all so kind. Even though it was my first feature film, it was just all really fun.
Alexander, we're starting to see more Indigenous-led thrillers and sci-fi films. Are you finding there's more support for these types of projects now?
Yeah, absolutely. I think both Indigenous and non-Indigenous audiences are, I think, more receptive and open, and not just that, but broadcasters, and also I just think global audiences are more accepting of hearing these stories from that are not necessarily from non-Indigenous storytellers.
Meadow, what do you hope people take away from the film?
Maybe that Indigenous films aren't always about trauma in the past and stuff, and this one's about aliens. So it's pretty cool, yeah.
Alexander, the film's going to debut later this month in Vancouver. Will a broader audience get a chance to see this film soon?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's going to be playing at the Rio Theatre in Vancouver, just to do a little plug, November 17th, which we're really excited about. And then it's also playing in Toronto later in November. Yeah, it's going to be streaming on Hollywood Suite next year, and then it's going to also be playing on APTN and CBC in the following year. But just to piggyback on what Meadow was saying, it's just so important to be seen. I think it's just so important to be seeing Indigenous peoples and stories of Indigenous peoples that are not always just, I think Indigenous communities have had a lot of suffering, but it's important to be also telling stories of, I would say, different stories that are not necessarily about suffering, but are about the future and are about strong, resilient characters that overcome obstacles in everyday environments.
Absolutely. Meadow, Alexander, we'll leave it there, but looking forward to this. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for having us.
And again, the film debuts tonight in Vancouver. That's all the time we have for you tonight. I'm Dennis Ward. Thanks for being with us. Stick around for Investigates.